on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Even though I have the bias of wide and the fear of being locked in, I still understand that there's no one answer. There never is one answer for authors. So I'm very open-minded to the different approaches, or I guess as the different ways up the mountain.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome. Yes, it is the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
Well, it's good to hear your dulcet tones back, Mark. We had Tom standing in for you in New York. I mean, I couldn't shut him up.
Did we have Tom standing in for you? I couldn't hear much.
He dominated the podcast, but there's no substitute for the real thing.
Well, quite. He had big shoes to fill, but I'm back. Don't worry, everyone.
We're mentioning Tom, young Tom. I should say that he's getting into his stride doing the sister podcast to the Self-Publishing Show, and they're really good. So I listened to Grace Winter this morning, who's the latest one. It was a really lovely chat from Grace, who's I cannot wait for her to release the next couple of books and start seeing some real results. She's somebody who's on her way, hopefully, to doing all of this full time, and hearing that story is in itself, it's inspiring.
Yeah, it's a good story. I've listened to that one too, and not quite as good as the one before, because that was me.
007.
But no, they're good little. They're exactly what we wanted them to be. So fairly short, 15 minutes usually. Same format, so 5 questions every week, and Tom takes care of those and is doing a really good job. So they're definitely worth listening to. So if you haven't subscribed to that yet, it's Self-Publishing Spotlight, and on all your usual podcast delivery devices.
Well, you can ask Alexa to play it.
Oh dear.
I've just set her off, everyone. I do not know the answer to that.
Blue lights flashing everywhere.
Yeah, so you can ask Alexa to play the Self-Publishing Show. I think if you say, Alexa, play Self-Publishing Formula or Mark Dawson Self-Publishing Formula, that works, and we'll...
On TuneIn, yeah. You have to add in on TuneIn, and that works. We're also on Spotify now as well, so you can find us there too. So there's lots of places to catch us now.
Excellent. So yeah, Spotlight is the no frills version of the podcast. This is the frills version. This is what you get with us. And one of the things you can do with us is you can be a part of the Self-Publishing Show by becoming a supporter at patreon.com. If you go to patreon.com/self-publishing show. What do you get for that? As I say every week, you get to become an enrolled student at the SPF University live training, usually once a month, and a whole archive there. Fantastic training for any of us in publishing and writing. And I have a bountiful group of people to welcome to patreon.com as supporters of the Self-Publishing Show. These came during the 3 weeks we were filming. Well, we weren't filming in New York for 3 weeks, but 3 weeks we were using up the material filmed in New York. And I want to welcome them now. So I'm going to say Sarah Blackard from Alaska, USA, AK, Alaska, USA. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Borat Lezjak from Senkur, says Slovenia, but I think it's probably Slovenia. There might be a typo, Slovenia. Senkur. Borat, I should say. It's got a U rather than A as the comedy character. Come on, Mark. You can back me up here. Eve Power. I can say that, from Dublin in Ireland. Andy Cumbo Floyd from Virginia, United States of America. Stephen Turner from Las Vegas, Nevada. Peggy McKenzie of Colorado in the US. Christian Wilmot from London here in the UK. Adrian Zemkowski from Georgia, USA. Brittany A. Fitcher from North Carolina. And perhaps thankfully, no addresses, no places for Tony Walsh, Lauren Deemer, Chris Cooper, Bettina, Jason Butterfield, Craig White, Annette Gendler, Myrta Schultz, and Matilda Andrews. We want to welcome everybody to patreon.com, to the Self-Publishing Show. Thank you so much indeed for listening and supporting us. It means a lot to me and Mark and the team behind the scenes who put all this together. Right.
Do you know what hazing is?
I don't know what hazing is. It's sexual.
No, it's not sexual. So hazing is when rookies join their teams in the States usually. So, rookie comes and joins the team. Hazing is where the veterans usually perform some kind of initiation ritual. So maybe they'll have to stand up and sing an embarrassing song or something like that, sing the fight song of their college's rival. Basically, being that you are just you haze all of our new Patreon subscribers every week as they join. That's the hazing ritual is your inelegant attempt at their names and where they come from.
They think they're doing a good thing, don't they? And then they get their name and place of
they do
birth ripped apart.
They do.
Anyway, I do my best, which is all that matters, I feel. That's what my mum used to say to me. So we could talk about New York. So we went to New York to Thriller Fest. And I have to say, if I'm going to be completely honest about it, I was a little bit kind of cynical about it. It's a very traditional organisation. I actually found it a little bit hard to deal with as well. And I think if you ever try to buy a ticket for Thriller Fest, you'll see what I mean. It's all segmented into various organisations, and it's expensive. I think our tickets were $950 each. For them, they gifted us one because we recorded huge amounts of stuff for them and put it out onto the podcast episode. So I'm being completely honest with you what happens in the background. So as we got off the plane in New York, I was thinking, are we doing this again? This might be the last time we do Thriller Fest. And then we looked at the Craft Fest, the 2 days, and the sessions were excellent, and the guests they have were superb. And we talked to some amazing people who've had massive success and know what they're talking about and are humble about it as well. And I really felt the interviews we gathered were worth it in the end. And I felt quite lifted talking to people. James Rollins was one of my favourites, but there were plenty of big names in there, Mark.
Yeah, they were very good episodes. As we record this, I haven't listened to the last one yet, which is some of the James Rollins, Harlan Coben, and people like that. So I'm looking forward to listening to that. But it was good. That's expensive. I didn't know it was expensive as that.
Yeah.
Is that like a press price?
Nope.
It's 900. Goodness me, that is very expensive.
And that wasn't everything. So that was for Craft Fest and Thriller Fest.
Right. Okay.
Didn't include.
It's pretty steep. I mean, that's the most expensive conference of any of the ones that I've been to. But you do get it. The guests are excellent, and it was 3 good episodes. The 2 that I've heard. And also, I'm looking forward to hearing the story of you in the toilets with Harlan Coben. That's got to be that's one for the ages, I think.
Hanging around in toilets is one of the things you get trained to do when you're trying to get an interviewee to agree to do an interview.
Yes.
He was quite difficult to get, but we did get him. Good. So I did feel it was worth it, and you do spend sort of 5 days inside a hotel, but you are in New York, which is pretty cool as well. And John and I went to see Billy Joel, and young Tom didn't come because he didn't know who he was.
I'm not surprised. Who is Billy Joel? Is he a popular music singer?
He was superb, and I can tell you who was sitting about 50 yards to our right was Bill and Hillary. So, we weren't...
Oh, right. Okay, so that says all I need to know about how much you spent on the tickets.
Yes, yeah. They were a bargain, I thought.
$500. They weren't expensed.
Nothing. Only my breakfast was expensed every day, and that was, I have to say, colossally expensive. Okay, good. Right, what else we've got to talk about? I'm going to say we're going to 2 conferences in the autumn as well. So our conference season's well underway. So we will go to Florida in September, which is creeping up on us very quickly, to NINC, which is a lovely, beautifully well-organised conference and great value for money. There is a membership criteria, though, for NINC. And we are main sponsors this year of the NINC conference, which we're really excited about. One of the main sponsors there.
Someone might be speaking as well.
Yes, you're speaking. Well, 2 of us are speaking, so I'm also speaking. So's John Dyer. I've roped him in. So,
oh my goodness! Well, how to finish a novel?
Well, I haven't qualified for that yet. So, I am speaking on podcasting. So we're going to talk about when it's right for authors to do a podcast and what you should be, how you should organise it, and what you should expect to get out of it. You're going to be talking about
kind of an update on ads, but there's I've got something. This is definitely going to be we'll do a webinar when we launch ads again in November, but will be the best webinar I've ever done. And it is, as I've been doing the advanced course, so the Facebook advanced course that everyone who is a student of the ads course will get. And then it will cost an amount for people who just want that on its own. But it's given me a chance to think about how I see a very pulled out macro view of advertising, and then we zoom into various levels and purposes and why we're using ads. And we've commissioned some animation for it, which I've seen just to kind of explain in a visual sense what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk about it's reader funnels basically. So it's the funnel is a very markety word, but it's the journey. God, I said it. I always try and avoid that word. It's the adventure that new readers go on as they, from not knowing anything about you to becoming a super fan. So it's everything through that process with ads at various levels. So it's been a really useful exercise for me just to codify what I do with ads. And that will be, I'll be talking about that, and then I'll be talking about some of the ads that I'm running. So I'm doing some unusual things at the moment with regards to German ads and French ads. I've started to advertise in France now, and lead gen and testing and PPE ads against traffic ads, all kinds of stuff. Amazon, BookBub. So it'll be. I'm doing a couple of sessions at Nig, so that'll be fairly action packed, and then I'm going to do a succinct version of that at 20 Books in Vegas, 45-minute presentation on the first day there. And then I'll do a webinar. So the webinars we do for the ads for Authors Launch will be about this specifically. So we may even put a link up in the next week or two so people can actually pre-register for that webinar, because it will be one that will sell out. We've sold the last couple, haven't we? Had 1,000 on the line a couple of times, and this one will be one that will possibly be more useful and popular than the ones I've done before. So we'll have to think about getting that set up.
Great. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to putting together the advanced course as well. Starting to work on that at detail level now. Okay, so to go along with our trips west to America, we will have 2 drinks opportunities, opportunity to come and meet at least 2 of us, maybe more of us, and then we'll do that again in Vegas. So I'm going to say that John Dyer and I will travel to Vancouver in Canada, and I think there's another Vancouver I noticed on the map in North America, but this is in northern US. This is the Vancouver city in Canada. We're going to be there on the 22nd of September. And we are going to have drinks in the city there. So if you're in that area, if you can get there, there's 2 things I'm going to say to you. First of all, come along, say hello. We'll buy you a drink and have a good time, because we're good time people. Secondly is if you are a user, a student of the course, and you'd be happy for me to have a chat with you on camera about your experience with the course, we're going to be there on the Friday and Saturday, and we're already talking to a couple of people. We'd love to talk to you as well. So just drop me a note, james@selfpublishingformula.com, and we'll arrange that. We will then be in St. Pete Beach near St. Petersburg in Florida, and that will be for the following week. And we're going to have drinks on the 25th. I've put it in. It's gone into the 26th on my calendar, but that's because of the time zone difference. It'll be the 25th Wednesday of September. I think we're going to combine it with Draft to Digital. I think we said that earlier in the year, didn't we? So I'm going to talk to Kevin about that. They might do theirs the next night. Either way, we'll be there on the 25th at the Sharktooth Tavern at the Tradewinds Resort in St. Pete Beach. So come along and say hello. We've met so many of you over the years there. It's a really fun event. And the great fun thing to do is to be there. Well, I get asked every 5 minutes, where's my book and where's Mark? Are the 2 questions. I'll have my prepared answer. And then about 11:30, my book is still not finished, but you turn up drunk.
Well, I wasn't drunk last time. I was quite sober. Everyone else was hammered.
Oh yeah.
I turned out I couldn't get in through the entrance because I got corralled by several drunk authors for about half an hour, and I was too polite to leave. But yes, I'll try and arrive a little earlier. I'm busy when I go to Florida. There's lots of things I have to do. So
people to see, people to do,
something like that.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, look, we have we mentioned Draft to Digital. We have our friend from Draft to Digital, Mark, who's here today. How do you say his surname, Mark?
Lefebvre.
Lefebvre.
Yes, Mark Lefebvre.
It does have a B in there, but
it's a silent B.
It's a silent B. So Mark Lefebvre. Now we've known Mark
Bastard.
for several years. For several years. He started life when we knew him at Kobo. He is, of course, an author himself. He has his own podcast. I think, Mark, you've been on it. I've been on it. You haven't been on it. I've been on it. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And funnily enough, at Nink last year, we were having drinks outside, and I saw Mark in sort of heated conversation. He'd left Kobo at this point. It was sort of freelancing. I saw him in heated conversations with the D2D guys, and I kind of was the least surprised person in the world when a press release came out a couple of weeks later saying Mark had joined them. So we caught up with Mark. Now, this is not to talk specifically about Draft to Digital, which, if you don't know, is an aggregator, someone you give your book to and they distribute it wide for you. And it's not really to talk about Kobo either. It's to talk from him, his experience being at the front line of marketing books, what he calls the 7 Ps of publishing, of self-publishing. So that's what we're going to talk to Mark about. Then the other Mark, whose surname I can say, will be back to have a chat off the back.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Mark, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. It's been a long time since you've been on.
It has been. It's great to chat with you again, James.
Considering you're such a key figure, such a towering figure in the in the indie industry. In fact,
I am tall.
You're a tall guy, and you're distinctive looking. And at most conferences, you're the first person I see when I walk into the room, which is pretty cool.
It's the shine off the head, probably.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything like that. And my exciting thing is that when we started to get our connection together, you'd left on some green screen application you had from yesterday. Now, if John, our editor, can switch from our lovely DSLR, which I've got going here, to the Zoom picture now, you can see I've just discovered it, and I've turned my Vulcan into a spaceship.
That's amazing.
It's going through space. Isn't that's so cool, that green screen? It's perfect fit as well. I have to take off my blue top.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Mark, this is the sort of thing that excites me. So you've got to understand this is a big moment in my day.
Oh, that is exciting, yes.
Yeah. So, Mark, we are going to frame this interview around the 7 Ps of publishing success. And the reason I think that you are equipped to talk about that is you're a guy with immense publishing experience that goes well beyond a lot of the people we speak to. 2011 was when it sort of happened for them. And they're experts in indie and they're leading the world. And these are huge guys. But you've seen the industry way before the Kindle, way before the electronic era. And I love that. I love that consistency and the fact that you often talk about it's the same stuff. You know, the things that made books work and sell 25 years ago are the things that you need to be aware of today. So that's how we're going to frame the interview. But before we start with the first P, let's catch up with you because you've changed jobs since we last spoke.
Yeah. I left Kobo at the end of 2017. Kobo Writing Life was a great experience, a wonderful team. Still adore the entire team. I had hired Chrissy Monroe with the goal of actually having her replace me. So we finally got to a point where she was ready and I was ready. So I took my leave and I ventured into full-time writing and consulting. And I loved the job. I did not like the 2 to 4 hour commute daily to get in and out of Toronto. That was the most difficult part of the job. My commute from that point on has been amazing. It's been about a 30-second commute from the bedroom into the den where I am now in Waterloo, Ontario. And I was enjoying myself, but I missed part of that. So I think maybe not the last time I saw you, but one of the last times I saw you in person, because I think we saw each other in Vegas the last time in person. But prior to that, September 2018 at Novelist Inc., I was chatting with Chris Austin, the CEO of Draft to Digital, and I think it was at your party. And we were just outside this.
I saw this unfolding, and I said to Mark, I think Mark's going to end up working for Draft to Digital because the conversations were more than just a clinking of beer, and you were sat down looking quite intense, talking to each other, just taking yourselves off, and that looked to me like a deal.
Exactly, yeah.
So I didn't get knocked over by a feather when the announcement came, but it was great to see it unfolding during one of those events. But do you know what? Just pausing for a second, we do travel around to these events, and there's a bit of an investment of time and money. Have a good cough there, I know you've got a cold, but deals get done. Careers get advanced, books get sold, and if you use them wisely, those relationships can yield things. So there was an example of serendipity, I guess, for you chatting and realizing you had quite a lot. It was a natural fit for you at Draft to Digital.
Yeah, and you are so right on that's one of the reasons why you go to these conferences. It may, there's great content, there's great material, there's great learning, but it's connecting with the people. And of course, I mean, I knew the guys from Draft to Digital, had known them for years and been hanging out with them for years, just like meeting up with you and Mark and so many other great people at these conferences. And it was just this natural conversation. We had to step out of because the music and party atmosphere was too loud. So we kind of stepped out and chatted for a long time and then continued the chat over the weekend because I'm Canadian and they're an American company. And so I'm not officially an employee of the company. I'm still an external consultant, but I do have a title position with them and I'm considered part of the team. And I love the fact that I've been to the office twice. Once a quarter, they have me come in. I spend a few days in the office so I can. It's a small team, right? Like 16, 17 people. Kevin Tumlinson is remote. I'm remote. He's in Austin. Their chief technical officers in Seattle. So I consider like this home is the Drafted Digital Canadian office, the Waterloo office, and then there's the Oklahoma office, and then there's the Texas office that Kevin's in as well.
So you're heading up the Canadian branch.
Exactly. I'm heading up the Canadian branch. So it's been an amazing fit because while I loved what I did with Kobo, I was with my partner Liz. We were at a conference probably a year earlier, and there was a traditionally published author who had some of the rights back on one of his titles, and Random House Canada had only bought Canadian rights, and he was looking at what he could do because I'd helped other authors with right splitting issues and saying, okay, the publisher has the rights to your book in these territories, but you can still use KDP and Kobo Writing Life and Drafted Digital. You can still use those with right splitting and make more money, to get your books into other audiences. And when I was talking to this author, I kept coming back to, well, this is what Kobo could do with you for you, and this is what Kobo could do for you. And Liz pulled me aside later, and she said, he doesn't want Kobo, he wants you. He wants your expertise, and you keep driving him back to Kobo. And I realized I love Kobo, but I was also doing him a disservice because in that particular case, Kobo's presence is huge in Canada, as well as Australia and a couple other places. So just focusing on Kobo was only going to help them in certain territories. Whereas if I could work, like how could I help them with Apple and how can I help them with other platforms? And so joining Drafted Digital allowed me to take that passion and love for the publishing wide and help authors no matter what platform they're on. So I love the fact that I can kind of take it to the next level now. And so it was almost like a natural progression for me.
And it's working out well. You're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's great because I now have a broader perspective of the industry. Now I know Kobo is global and they partner with retailers, so I still have that as part of my perspective. But now I'm getting to understand Nook better and getting to understand Apple and getting to really dig into helping authors even on selling on Amazon. Because I still do consulting one-on-one with authors and publishers, and again, depending on their strategy and their approach, if they're exclusive to Amazon, I can help them with that, and because it's not in violation of of working for Kobo. So it's this great opportunity where I get to work with authors through Drafted Digital. I get to work with an amazing team of really passionate, committed people who really are about providing tools for author success. And again, yeah, it's just that wonderful progression, and again, still having a great relationship with Chrissy and the KWL team and all the wonderful folks at Kobo. That never hurts either.
Yeah, but she did kick your ass when it came to push-ups. I mean, it was.
She did.
We should tell people I'd just done the presentation, so I was still on stage, and I've got some iPhone footage I'll ship to the editor so he can.
Oh, that's right.
It up
yes.
now. But I think this went back a little bit. Some dare or bet between the two of you.
Michael Anderle actually caught us at the Kobo gathering at NINC, the same conference that Chris and I connected at for Drafted Digital, and she was joking, or Michael was joking with Chrissy, saying, well, he could look at him, he's a badass, he could take you, and she's like, oh, I could take him any day, and she's very strong, tough, right? I hired the best,
the tough people,
and so Michael came over to me and said, hey, we're gonna do this push-up contest, we're gonna raise money. For pick your charity, and I thought it was all the representatives from the different companies would be there, and then we would all raise money. I didn't realize it was just Chrissy and I. So I'm looking at Anderle, and I'm looking at a couple like, oh, I could take you, no problem. And I didn't realize it was just Chrissy and I. Chrissy 10 years younger than me and way better shape than I.
Here we go. All I'm hearing is excuses.
But it was a good time, and we raised money for a good cause, and that was a lot of fun.
It was a tough contest, and you're right, you're both strong, but Chrissy certainly has the strength there. Yeah. Good. Well, look, let's get on to the first of the P's. So I've got them in front of me now. The 7 P's of publishing success, and I think you said right away these are universal, and this is a great thing for you, stretching across the history of publishing that you've been involved with. I don't want to make you sound too old. You're not that old. But let's start with number 1, which is practice.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically writing every day. This is getting butt in chair and getting the writing done. And it goes back to the best way to sell your next book or your first book is to write your next book, right? So continuing to work at that, and you know this as well. You're working with Jenny. You're working with a great developmental editor, and you understand that getting back in there and just working at it makes you better every day. So that's universal, whether you're traditionally published or self-published.
Yeah, and I think regardless of almost regardless of what you're writing and whether you writing with a developmental editor hand holding you or not, just the process of writing. And someone picked me up the other day when I was explaining that I do an average of 890 something words a day. I've done over the last 5 months.
Yeah,
So I'm doing 25,000 words a month, which is good, but I don't
fantastic.
necessarily write every day. And if you look at my spreadsheet, there's like blocks of red where I haven't written, and then green days where I've gone over 2,000, 2,500 words. And somebody said to me, I can't remember who it was now, but so they posted and said, write every day. And so I kind of thought, well, this system's working for me. It's working well. But I have taken that on board, and it does make a difference. It makes a difference between thinking I've got to do my writing now and it just being a natural habit.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly,
making
and
it a habit.
that's what National Novel Writing Month is about. Is trying to focus for 30 days on making it a habit of getting words on the page every day. And you probably, I mean, there will be days you miss, but that's okay. Even if you do 100 words, that's 100 more words you haven't done. And every time you sit down and work on that, you're continuing to refine your craft.
Okay, so that's an absolutely universal one. Practice, keep writing, bum on seat, hands on keyboard, as Adam Croft famously said on our podcast once. Before we get to the next P, a quick question then about D2D and what's happening in the aggregating world.
Yeah.
What's new for D2D? And just explain for those people who don't know what Drafted Digital is or what it offers, you could perhaps start with that.
Yeah, so Drafted Digital is a free service that basically has pretty much the best free EPUB conversion tool from Word, for example, Word document to EPUB. A little known secret, not so secret, is even though I was paying a lot of money for the free conversion tool like Kobo Writing Life, even when I worked at Kobo, I was using the Drafted Digital free conversion. I was getting my Mobi, putting that to KDP, and then taking my EPUB from there because you can take it and do whatever you want with it, right? It's free, and then I was uploading that directly, and then using Drafted Digital, for example, to get into Nook and Apple and a whole bunch of other places. And so again, the tools are all free. Drafted Digital basically keeps 10% of what you earn. So you're basically giving up 10% instead of going direct. But for some authors, you're benefiting from the saving time. So, for example, I mean, some of the authors that I work with, they're happy to go direct everywhere and have that tight control. Or other ones just say, you know what, if I log in once and I can get my book everywhere, that 10% is worth my time. The other benefit, and this was just released in the last 7 months, was account sharing. So virtual assistants can log into your Drafted Digital account and only see and update your metadata. Not you have the control to allow whether they can see your and touch your banking information, or whether they can see and even see your sales information. So, for example, like let's say an author like Mark Dawson has a virtual assistant who's making a little bit of money, and they're seeing that he's bringing in 7 figures a month. They're going to go like, can I get more than $5 an hour? Because I
Yeah.
see you can afford it. So again, you can control that, or you can let your agent have access to it. So your agent can see your sales, for example, because maybe they're going to use that to sell foreign rights or whatever. So the flexibility of a tool like that provides you the security that you're not just handing over your KDP login, for example, to somebody. That's a benefit. And then, of course, the universal book links is the other thing that even if you're not published to Drafted Digital, I use them for all my traditionally published titles. So you can go to like Macabre Montreal was my last nonfiction title from Dundurn Press, and you can go to bookstoread.com/Macabre Montreal and find it on all platforms, just like you can find all my self-published titles that way. And I use that now instead of I used to have a Kindle version, a Kobo version, of whatever version. Now I just use those universal links to save myself time and energy.
Yeah, and I'm not sure until you get to the point of uploading books and putting them on various platforms. I'm not sure people realize how much is involved with this and how these little things like the UBL, the Universal Book Link, how much they can save. And they're powerful tools in their own right. We had a webinar last night on the importance of getting reviews and
Yes.
putting a link at the back of your book immediately there to say, here's where you can leave a review. And of course, people are typing in their questions saying, well, hang on, I can't put my Amazon link in my Apple book. But the
Yeah.
Universal Book Links is a way around that. So it's a personalized link depending on which platform the book's on.
Yeah, and when Drafted Digital distributes for you, what they do is in the version they send to Kindle or to Apple or to Kobo or to wherever, they include the link just to that retailer. Now, with Apple or Kobo and Amazon, for example, with all of those multiple different links to the different countries, it actually has that geo targeting. So, you'll see it in the UK, whereas I'll see the Canadian version when I click on it. So it's that much more sophisticated. And again, I love it because it's free and it makes it easier for the people to go to the platform they would rather read on.
Second P, professionalism.
Oh yeah. And I debated on putting that one first because I think being professional in your approach. Being professional means hiring an editor and making your work the best it can possibly be. Working with good designers, working with the right professionals. Whether you're wanting to traditionally publish and you're seeking an agent or an editor, you have to behave professionally. Yes, we can go to Nink and we can do karaoke night and have a fun time being silly together, but we also have to maintain an era of professionalism or of even the brand that you project into the world. And I mean, you guys know this very, very well because you and Mark have that persona of like the BBC quality show and professional production. And when you're on the road with John and all the stuff that you guys do, you very much portray that as industry professionals. But it's very important for an author to have that brand as well because you can go to the K board, you can go and share things online, you can go to the 20 books to 50K group, and people are watching. Having been a bookseller my entire life, or at least since the early 90s, I would pay attention to how authors behaved when they came into the store. Would they shuffle books off the shelf and just grab theirs and face it out in front of five other books? Would they be professional and courteous? How do they treat other authors? How do they treat other people in the industry? Retailers are paying attention. Other authors are paying attention. Editors are paying attention. And you have to start now with professionalism.
Yeah, and I would include under professionalism being nice to people. And this is not
Oh, for
just
sure.
it's not just a karma thing in life. It's an important business tactic, if you want to put it brutally. And my
Yeah.
time as a BBC reporter, you meet lots of people, some very famous people, and virtually everyone you meet in that sphere is really nice. And it's a bit of a cliche, I've met a couple of presidents and prime ministers and Hollywood stars, and you come back and you say, God, they were really nice. And of course they are, because they've got on and they're successful and people like them and like to be with them and like to work with them. Their lives depend on people liking to being in their company, particularly politicians. Now, actually, you think they have the opposite reputation, but that's only because the few we hear about, those stories get amplified.
Right.
Most
Yeah.
people, captains of industry, they're not nasty people, and publishing is full. The harshest, the big five publishing people. You meet these editors who are, we might think they're slaving away in an old-fashioned Titanic-like, and they're the nicest people you're ever going to meet, who are passionate about books, who love readers, who are so enthusiastic that you are writing a book,
Yeah.
and so being nice, wanting to learn about other people, and being interested, as my mother always said, be interesting and interested. If you can do those two things, so I think I would put that under professionalism as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. People are paying attention. I mean, don't be a dick, basically.
Yes.
Will Wheaton's
That's
favorites.
the Mark Dawson way of saying it.
Yeah.
And the Craig Martell, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So before we get to the next P, we're going to rattle through the Ps. I'm going to ask you, we touched on the conferences and you talked about the importance of going. Now, I know, for a lot of people, the world's quite a big planet, right? And unfortunately, most conferences aren't half an hour's drive away. You're lucky, particularly in America, it's a huge country. You're lucky if the conference happens to be on your doorstep. So do you still think it's important for writers, perhaps starting out, who aren't yet making money, to go to a place like Nink or 20 Books Vegas?
Yeah, I think that it's important. Now, again, it's a huge investment, right? And that's part of professionalism, right? It's part of investing in yourself. But try going to a local conference. Try going to something somewhat related. If the library is hosting an event for authors, and it is a chance to even meet five people, it doesn't have to be a major event like Nink or 20 books to 50K. Because maybe you can't afford that. Maybe you need to sort of ease your way into it, get to a local one. Just the practice of getting in front of other people, talking about your book, and again, talking to other people and listening to them and learning from them. That is phenomenal. And I do strongly encourage it. Now, I know the Alliance of Independent Authors just ran one of their other amazing free virtual workshops. Great place to go and learn from amazing people from around the world without leaving the comfort of your own home, which is great. And often because we're introverts, we're a lot more comfortable doing that or listening to podcasts or whatever. But just making that effort to connect with people, because it's the connections that you make with other writers that can pay off in the long term, years down the line.
Yeah. And I think we bumped into Mike Lewis, who's a writer down in North Florida, and he was at Thriller Fest, and he said he's never been to a conference without meeting somebody who can help him. Now, I'm sure he helps other people as well, but he's
Yeah.
never been to a conference without making one more contact, whether it's a cover designer or a new editor or somebody who introduces him to a way of distributing books to bookshops. And that's the sort of thing that it is difficult to find sometimes sitting by yourself. It's also, I think, I'd add this in, an energy boost for you and a motivation. We live these sort of siloed lives in our houses, and when you write, I've been as much as anybody else, and I blogged this a bit full of self-doubt about my writing and whether I can finish this, and you go to a conference like this, and you feel this collective support for each other, which is great.
Yeah, and that's one of those underlying things that you can feel, but it's really hard to quantify. So as a business case, like how do you justify it? How do you justify emotion?
Yeah.
But again, it's
Not
valuable.
Not
You need that.
everything is a cent or a penny on a
Exactly.
spreadsheet, but it will eventually make a difference to the bottom line. Okay, next P, patience.
Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, this one started off when I used to mail manuscripts away, hammer them out on a typewriter, mail them away, and wait 9 months for a rejection so I could send it off again. Um, Taking the patients involved in a process like that and then applying it to, okay, I published my book. It's now live on Amazon. I'm going to hit the dashboard every 15 seconds to see if I've got another sale. Um, the slush pile has moved from, the back room of Random House to an online catalog near you. Sometimes the patience is, you're not going to sell right away. And maybe it's not until your next book comes out. So in traditional publishing, historically, a publisher would know that the author wasn't going to make it until at least their third book came out. Now, the way traditionally publishing has changed, they stopped investing in authors in that way, and sometimes they only give them one book shot, which is, the death spiral of traditional publishing for mid-list authors. Whereas, when you think of Hugh Howey, Wool was his 10th novel, right? I'm sure Mark had published multiple books before he became the Mark Dawson that we know and love today. They worked hard, they put out lots of material, and it came with patience, practice, and then it almost is a natural lead into progression, persistence.
Yeah.
Not giving up when you're not seeing the results right away. Again, it's like a diet, right? You work at the diet, you control what you're eating, you exercise, you don't see results right away, you see results over time. And it's the same thing in your writing career. You work at it hard and you keep working at it hard. And eventually that overnight success comes after years of people not seeing what you've been working on. So for example, like when your book comes out and it's an international bestseller, people are going to go, yeah, sure. His first book came out. He just wrote it and pushed it out,
It was
not
easy.
realizing that the dedication and effort and the persistence and the skill that you put in to making this the best book you could make it, right? Like that, I think that's a perfect example for listeners to watch how you've gone through this amazing process and then gone back into it and refined it and worked with somebody like Jenny, for example, because I've loved those episodes and I loved seeing that because it shows the true work that's usually beneath the surface that most people never see.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what went into writing a book before I start this process. I am now full of, when I meet somebody who's written a book, and obviously I meet people who've written books all the time, I'm in awe of them. And so film directors say the same thing. So when you understand what goes into making a film, you'll be
Yeah,
amazed any film ever gets made. But
exactly.
books are hard. I mean, you do meet people occasionally who say, "Oh no, I don't plot. I just write it, and my editor makes a couple of changes. It's there." But they are few and far between, and even they're probably lying to make it look a
Yeah.
bit easier. It's difficult, and yeah. So there is no shortcut to that. And goes back to something you said at the beginning about practice. Is that finding your writing voice takes, you can't think, well, I'm going to write this first chapter, and then I'll see how my writing is, and it'll be better in the second chapter. It's 100,000. I'm probably knocking on 300, 400,000 words later, and
Yeah.
I'm still I'm making progress, no question about it. With my writer voice, Mark said he once heard it was 1 million words of writing
Yeah.
to sort of refine your voice.
Yeah,
And
it's like think of the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. The same idea in terms of words that you've
do
written.
the violin as well to get that up. Shall we? I'm going to combine progression with this. Then, so we've got patience, progression. You mentioned persistence, which is coming up. It's a little teaser of the next P after that. So progression. What do we mean by progression, Mark?
So it kind of goes back to practice and professionalism. So progression is not just writing the same way every day and not learning and getting better at it. So practice without progression is repeating the same thing over and over. So you need to progress, you need to get better, you need to read other things, you need to experience and apply things to your writing and learn as you go along. And it's the same thing with progression. So I'll use a perfect example. There are some traditional publishers that are, huge multinational billion-dollar companies that do really, really well when it comes to print, but they haven't progressed in terms of understanding digital and the differences in digital. So that's a perfect example of looking at they have progressed brilliantly in terms of distributing dead trees, and they're still amazing at that, and they still do incredible at that. But in so many ways, they haven't progressed in terms of digital the way that indie authors have progressed and taken advantage of these new opportunities. So, learning the business and understanding the ins and outs of the business and progressing in your craft and progressing in the understanding of this industry are critical for continuing to success and adapt and evolve.
Yeah, so it's a bit sort of working smarter as well as hard, or
Yeah,
smarter,
exactly.
not just harder. And yes, maybe the traditional industry has some emotional baggage around it. It resists change, and any big
Yeah.
organization does. And it's amazing when you think the positions that some of the big retailers were in. If you look at the music industry, it's a great example. HMV. Do you have to have
Yeah.
HMV in
Yeah.
America?
Yeah. We did have an
Yeah,
HMV.
so
Yeah.
they were. If anybody was well placed to be the future of online digital music, but of course they resisted it and they kept on with their record shops and they thought this is a fad or maybe we'll do some side project. And in the meantime, names we hadn't heard of 15, 20 years ago are the biggest companies on the planet doing that.
Yeah.
But HMV had the platform. I'm now thinking about autonomous cars. So I think my pet
Yeah.
theory here is that rental car companies are in the perfect position to be the
Oh,
autonomous cars people. The Hertz, the Avis, these world
yes.
global. But what's the betting? It'll be a name none of us know now that
Yeah.
will be the autonomous car company we all have on our phones, our apps, and run because of that difficulty of changing and adapting. And that's a great advantage indie authors have. We're small, lean, agile. Make sure you're working smart and as you
Exactly.
say, progressing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to take another question, then we're going to move on to the next piece. And my next question is: you have worked in the wide field, right? Kobo,
Yes.
now drafted digital. So, do you have a view that's skewed on the debate about wide versus exclusive? Are you always going to say, "Well, wide's obviously better because of your background and your insights,"
No,
or
I'm
do you
not. I'm
see
not.
this as a
Yeah,
genuine?
yes, that's my bias for 100%. That is my bias for obvious reasons. However, I have always had a book exclusive to Amazon. When I was sitting in the Kobo office and they announced KDP Select, within an hour, I had a book published to KDP Select, and it's still there. I have tested and measured and gone in and done things, trying to take advantage of Kindle Unlimited. And because again, I need to understand how this works. Now, I know that for some authors, it makes 100% sense because they make way more money from that than they would publishing wide. And I like to say, for every single author, for every single book, for every single writing project, there is a unique element to that that's different than even your other books. So this book might be better in Kindle Unlimited, like KDP Select. This other one might be better wide. This book might publish better in print. So, for example, a lot of my traditionally published books, they're print book sales. They're souvenirs that people want to buy because they visited a city and they want ghost stories about the city. They don't want the ebook. Well, the publisher doesn't know how to sell the ebook anyways because they overprice it and whatever. But they want the print book. So I know that those books are better off in the hands of a traditional publisher who gets my books into Costco and Walmart and in the major bookstore chains. Whereas my independently published fiction titles are better off because they'll sell better in ebook format for $5. Now, again, there's the choice, there's the eggs in one basket and stuff like that. Again, it's part of branching out and making your work available in multiple ways. So having some stuff that's exclusive and some stuff that's wide, and figuring out what works best for you. I mean, when I sit down with authors and I look at well, how much are you making from exclusivity, and could you potentially make more not? And there's no one answer for everyone. So even though I have the bias of wide and the fear of being locked in, I still understand that there's no one answer. There never is one answer for authors. So I'm very open minded to the different approaches, or I guess as the different ways up the mountain.
Yeah, as nobody should close off one avenue forever. And obviously, Mark's made a quite high-profile switch with a lot of his books to exclusive, and seems to be working really well
Yeah,
from him. But that's not to say this time next year will be the same. And
it
he's a
changes over time too.
great
Yeah.
example of somebody who will quickly adapt.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's part of progression, right? Mark's trying different things. He's testing different things. He's seeing how things can work differently, and if the market changes, he's able to adapt.
yeah, which brings us on to the next P, which is persistence. There have to be lots of sibilance in persistence.
Yes, and that is critical,
Oh, have
right?
we done persistence?
Well, I kind of blended into persistence already when I talked about just
Yes.
continuing to work at it, even when your dashboard is showing nothing going on, when your ads aren't working. You try different things. You take a course, you go to a free webinar, you learn, and you keep at it, because you gotta think back to your goals, right? Why are you doing this, and is this something you want to do as a career author? Is this something that you want to just do as a hobby? And that's where the persistence can really pay off in the long run.
Yeah, and I'm going to add my little a window on indie publishing, which is a lot about paid ads, which is where Mark's real specialist background is. And we see quite often, we work with people who they need the patience and persistence, because you can't set up a campaign for the first time and then check it 5 minutes later. We literally get people who've been running a
Yes.
campaign for 4 hours and say, well, I haven't got a sign up. And you're thinking,
Bingo.
let it breathe for 3 days, at least 3 days.
Yeah.
You've got to write off that $15, $5 or whatever it is, or maybe put $20 in a day, and just know that $60. And don't look at it. Don't look at it.
Yeah.
Then, when you've got some data, you can say, do you know what? People aren't spending enough time on this ad, or you can start to drill in that deep. I mean, it's a little bit of patience and persistence and shaping stuff, and you do yourself no service at all by expecting an instant result and being disappointed and giving yourself a horrible emotional roller coaster with these things. And that's my little window on those two P's.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And again, I mean, even like having been at Kobo, it takes 6 to 9 months to build up. Whereas usually on Amazon, it's a lot quicker. Not always, not for everyone, but for some. T.S. Paul blew my mind, because I just left Kobo, and he is just going into trying to publish some stuff wide. And I think he was wide for a month, and he sent me. He said, "Oh, I did this in sales on Kobo this month," and I went, "No, you didn't. That's impossible. It takes 6 months to get to that level." And he showed me his dashboard, and I went, "Okay,
Yeah.
exception that proves the rule."
T.S. Paul has broken every rule there is.
Every rule, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But great success, and good for him. Okay, next P then is partnership.
Yeah, no, this is important. Now, I think of partnership in terms of, I was asked, I did a presentation at the Writers of the Future, I think it was in 2014, and they asked me to predict the future of publishing. I was like, well, nobody can predict the future of publishing, but one thing I will tell you is I believe it will involve more collaboration than ever before. And we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing that with multi-author bundles. We're seeing collaboration and partnership. The partnerships you have with co-authors, the partnerships you have with editors and designers and businesses, right? You partner with Draft to Digital to distribute your books. You hang out with the folks from Kobo. You meet the Apple reps, right? You hang out with other authors, and then you think about the partnerships that you have. And this kind of blends into the next one. The partnerships that you have with your readers, and that back and forth. It's all about collaboration. And again, I switched that because I was trying to adhere to the P's. It's about collaboration. So that's what partnership really means.
Yeah, and that's a good universal thing, I think, as well. The best companies view their customers as partners, providing a service that works for them, and vice versa. And the older style,
Exactly.
I don't know, the bookies at the race course, they may just see punters, right? And that's an older, but that's 100 years ago. That may have worked. Today's business has to be a partnership, and at
Yeah,
every
for
level.
sure.
That also makes us feel better working. It's more enjoyable working in an environment where you're working together, and that's one of the great things about this community, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. We're not in competition with one another, right? We're as authors, we're partnering together and we're helping each other out because, and this is a perfect example, and it kind of lends professionalism. When I'm at an event and my books are on a table and someone comes and approaches me, I write ghost stories and horror and thriller. If somebody comes up and they're a romance fan, I do not want them to buy my books. But I'm going to point them out and say, well, my friend Julie Strauss has a table over there and her romance novels are awesome. You have to read them. I would rather that person read a book they're going to love rather than read one of mine and not like it and give me a one-star review
Yeah.
because it doesn't help us. So the partnership there is me recognizing they're not my ideal customer. How can I help them find something that I know they're going to love? And that's one of those long-term things for success as well.
Yeah, and I did an interview yesterday. Who was it I spoke to yesterday? It's a romance author yesterday who made a good point, which is that my readers want to read all the time. I can't write enough books for them, so I need
Yeah,
other
exactly.
romance authors alongside me. I don't, they're not my competition. They're keeping the fires going for my next book, which is
Bingo. Yeah.
a
Yeah,
good way of
exactly. I
looking
did
at it.
this at a Marie Force event in Toronto where Harlequin and Kobo had co-hosted a party for her top 500 readers and they were there. She had just released the book at midnight that night and that evening as I was about to, interview Marie on stage, everyone there had already finished her book by 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And so what I did is I went, well, here are a whole bunch of other great books you should read. And Marie was happy with that because again, similarly, those they're going to read a book a day and then in 6 months when she releases her next book or 2 months because she does publish multiple ways, um yeah, it just helps stoke the fires for those readers.
She's great, Marie Force. Um, I think partnership was the penultimate P, just to get away from sibilance. What's P called? I don't know. But let's move on to the final one, which is patronage.
Yeah. Again, that blends into patronage. I mean, not necessarily Patreon, but that's one of them. Not necessarily Kickstarters, but that's one of them. But again, it's you need customers. You need to have people who are reading the types of books that you're writing. You need to have that. So that's a critical element of success. You need to have readers. And then in some cases, I mean, a good friend of mine who has traditionally published 25 novels is not sure if he's going to traditionally publish his next book, but he started a Patreon campaign where, as he's writing the next book, the only people who are getting it are his patrons.
Wow.
And again, it's a sustainable income that's replacing what used to be a huge advance from a publisher, but he's connecting directly with his readers in a way he never could before.
But you're making the wider point that we need customers and we shouldn't be embarrassed about that. Is an important part of our existence is people paying for what we do.
Yeah, again, and there are things to do for giving content out for free and stuff like that, and that all works. But at the end of the day, you need to be making money, right? And people recognize and what I think I was just listening to Joanna Penn's 10th anniversary, the Creative Pen podcast, and she says it still amazes her that even though you can get this content for free, there are people willing to pony up a few dollars a month just to say, I love what you're doing. I want to throw my support at you. And that's an amazing thing to experience.
Great. We have a bonus P. Do you remember you did a bonus P and the
I
bonus
did a
P?
bonus P, yeah,
Can
because
you?
eight P's wasn't going to work.
No. But do you remember what the bonus P is?
Well, promotion, of
That
course,
is
because that
promotion.
spreads across all of the other P's in a very subtle way. Again, not just thinking about advertising and marketing and promotions for patrons, but even promoting yourself as a professional. And all of those. There's in almost every element of the other P's. Promotion is critical because in many ways, Amazon is now pay to play. It used to be you could just stick up a 99-cent book that you created in Paint yourself, like the cover for, and you could make money off of that. Well, those days are gone. But in many ways, purchasing ads and working on different promotions are becoming critical. But again, it's just a long-term promotion too, and it's promoting your author brand, and it's promoting all of the things that you do. It's even working in promotion and helping promote other people, which lends to partnership and collaboration and all those things. So that's why I made promotion the bonus P, because it does touch upon the elements of every single other one there.
It does. Well, Mark's been great. I mean, there's something I think that I could do. I'm sure that everyone listening to this could do. You could literally get a spreadsheet or a bit of paper, write down those 7+1, and under each one have your own sort of markers, your own, what they call them, key indicators, what are they called, to hit.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
professionalism, your word count, getting the job done. Under patience, targets that are realistic, that give you time to make sure something's going to work rather than expect quick results, and so on. And just keep yourself traveling in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great strategy. I like that approach.
Good. Well, Mark, it's been super fun talking to you. And again, I'm just so delighted that I've got my Vulcan in space.
It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. I'm glad that mistake I made helped you with this.
It is a thing of beauty. I'm going to play with this endlessly now and see where else I can stick my Avro Volt, my 1950s RAF jet.
You're Canadian Avro, right? Is that what it is?
Well, Avro is now a Canadian company. It was originally called AV Row in Northern England, but I could probably...
Oh, yes.
Yes, it is. It is part of... Well, de Havilland, I think it's the same as in a Canadian company now, isn't it? But
part of the Commonwealth, right?
The Queen is our head of state. She's the commonality through our 7.1 Ps.
Exactly, because she can move in any direction.
She can. Yes, there's a great picture of her next to the bishop, isn't there? Where she can go in any direction. Brilliant, Mark. It's always fun. I can't wait to share a beer with you again at our next place. I don't know where that will be. Probably Nink, maybe. I don't know.
Probably going to be Nink. I look forward to that, James.
For the fest or not?
I don't think I'm going to be. I'm not sure if I'm getting to that or not.
No,
We'll find out soon.
Oh, well, I'll see you anyway. When I walk in the room, I know straight away whether you're there.
For sure. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Mark.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There we go. Did you like my science fiction Vulcan? If John Stone can switch to the screen flow. There we go. I'm now the whole of me's in space. This was my big discovery during the chat. There's something weird going on here, isn't there? What's that? This needs trimming, this CSO. And I can't make my Vulcan go into space like I did before. But these small things, they make my day.
Yes, so for those of us who are listening on the podcast, James has found a new toy whereby he can change the background behind him. We're now looking at the Golden Gate Bridge. Before that, it was space. But it looks cheap, which kind of sums it up, really. It doesn't completely clip out his background, so it looks really quite rubbish. But anyway, there we go. That's those are the production values that we are keen to uphold at Self-Publishing Formula.
Yes.
So yes, there we go. No, I didn't like your Vulcan. I thought it looked a bit silly, but if it makes you happy,
you haven't seen the Vulcan in space yet. It's on the interview.
I haven't, and I really can't wait.
Yeah.
Can you tell? I'm very excited.
Vulcan in space might be the follow-up to The Last Flight.
I was going to say Vulcan in space. Surely that's been done.
Yes, there's a famous Vulcan from space. Talking my book, I did, to give myself a break from the revision process, which is going really well, I should say. I did
really
I wrote a short story on holiday just to give myself a little. And there's an idea that's been knocking around for a while, and then it's sort of tied in with the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. It's set 300 years in the future on the moon, and it's called Catastrophe at the Footprint Museum. And it's about the curator of the National Historic Monument.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with your book?
No.
Your novel? So you can't use it? It was just... Okay, all right.
No, it's just an exercise.
Fair enough.
But I started universe building, as they say, and so there's 7 resorts on the moon in 300 years' time, which you can go to. And one of them is the Trump Suicide Hotel, which is the kind of gaudy, tacky thing it has is because you're on the moon in 1/6 gravity, you can throw yourself out of the window, and there's a huge airbag surrounds the hotel, and you can land on it. That's kind of the shtick of the Trump Suicide Hotel. It's very tacky and very tasteless, but there's also nicer resorts there. But the footprint resort is obviously the key one. Everyone has to visit the Footprint National Historic Monument at some point. And the opening paragraph of the short story is the curator whose life is dedicated. It's in a vacuum because that footprint's always going to be there forever. He has to do some maintenance and he falls onto it.
Okay.
And destroys it just before a VIP visit. So that's what I did. I don't know do you ever do that? Do you find you don't work on one project as long as I have worked on this one book, but do you sometimes think I just want to write something else?
No, because I'm always thinking about what's coming next. I'm very close to finishing a Milton book at the moment, and then I'm going to go to this Salisbury detective story I've been thinking of for a while. Atticus Priest, yep. So I'll be, and that's, I've already written about 70,000 words of that, but it's been on the back burner for about 6 months. But I want to finish that now, and then I've got 3 or 4 more ideas ready to go. So it really is just a question of writing them. So no, I don't. I'm fairly monogamous when it comes to writing. I'll stick to what I'm writing, finish that, then do the next one. But at the same time, I'll also be thinking about planning. And for example, I watched Chernobyl recently on HBO. Which is effing brilliant. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's fantastic. But it gave me a really good idea for a story set around that time, and it fits in quite nicely with the same kind of time frame as the book I've got coming out in January next year called The Vault. And again, it's like a really high concept idea, but I think it could be amazing. But it's just when will I get time to write it? Maybe next year. We'll see.
That would be a standalone.
Well, it would be a bit. The Vault is kind of a standalone, but there are for people who read any of my stuff from the last 4 years, they'll recognize characters, they'll recognize the genesis of certain things that will become more important as the books go on. It's kind of set in the 80s. I love that kind of time anyway itself. So,
Stranger Things has been huge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just watching that at the moment. It's in the third episode.
I watched that on holiday. It was brilliant. I loved third episode. Third series I thought was the best yet.
Okay, I've heard different opinions on that.
Interesting.
I like it so far.
I thought 2 was a bit weak, but third series was great. Good. Okay. Well, I just thought I did the short story as a kind of mental exercise of just.
No, it's good idea. How many words?
I don't know.
Oh, don't worry. Knowing you short probably means 50,000. Probably.
Yeah, 120,000. Yeah, so short. I can't talk to you about word count yet because I haven't got to that stage. That is the last stage of the revision process that I'm going through with Jenny, is to then go through and trim. And at the moment, I'm just sorting out some timelines. But it's gone up a little bit rather than down, but I'm not thinking about that at the moment. Good. What else was I going to say? I was going to say something of terrific importance, but I can't remember what it was. It's gone from me. Okay.
It was very important.
It was obviously vitally important. Good. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You mentioned Atticus, and I thought of you whilst we were in New York because we did, again, not on expenses, I should say. In fact, we did actually put young Tom's ticket on expenses. We went to see To Kill a Mockingbird, which has just been readapted for stage by Aaron Sorkin. And it's got Jeff Daniels in the lead role, and we thought, this is amazing. So we picked up tickets for that. We said to Tom, do you want to come? He said, yeah, it's great. And they were like $250 tickets because it was like the last moment. And then I think he thought maybe we were gifting them to him. So we decided young Tom could be gifted them. But we sat there and we watched it. And of course, you've got a dog called Scout and a character called Atticus. So you're all over To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favourite books. Yeah, absolutely.
I also noticed, it's funny when you watch the stage play, obviously Sorkin draws huge amounts from the actual dialogue in the book. Lots of turns of phrases. It's a bit like watching a Shakespeare play, actually. Lots of little turns of phrases have made their way into common language. And we have a really unpleasant, extraordinarily extreme right-wing politician in the UK. I call him politician. He's a thug. He literally goes around beating people up, but he gets notorious coverage. And he's called himself Tommy Robinson. That's not his real name. But I was sitting there watching the play thinking, well, that's the name of the man on trial in To Kill a Mockingbird. Probably not a mistake. So yeah, it's a play.
Come on, that assumes that Stephen Yaxley face. Sorry, I have to repeat that. That he actually he can read, which I find. I'm not entirely sure I believe that.
Yeah, so maybe not, but anyway, Tentacles Reach Deep. It was wonderful playing. Jeff Downs was brilliant. He kept looking at us. We think he was getting.
Yeah, he told me
inspiration.
afterwards he saw you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Look, we've got, I think, about 19 seconds left on this blast of my camera
yes.
anyway. So we're going to wrap this up. We have another great interview next week. I think we're talking to a male romance writer next week from memory. And that is a good interview coming up. So I want to say have a good week, Mark. Have a good week writing and selling.
And yes, you too. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.